Hey everyone, and welcome to the video. So today we're going to be taking an updated look at the Eufy Cams, or well, all of the Eufy Cams that I have, as well as the Eufy doorbell. And what we'll do is we'll come into the app, and first thing we'll do is we'll take a look at the Eufy security app, and then we'll pop over to HomeKit as well, and I'll just give you a bit of an update in terms of where we stand with regards to battery life and other things. So some of you will have seen, if you're a subscriber to my channel, you would have seen that I posted a video stating that obviously I had an issue with one of the cameras, the front driveway camera. Obviously I had made another video stating how I'd ordered a solar charger for this particular camera, and what actually happened was when it came, I'll make a separate video on that anyway, but just to give you the general gist of things, it came and the connector was, I wanted to see whether the end connector, the micro USB connector, actually fit the camera or not, because a lot of times the connector that they'll put on these sort of generic chargers, and that's what it turned out to be, it wasn't one that was specific for these cameras as it turned out. But basically the connector, I just wanted to see if it fitted, so took the camera off, went to inspect it, and obviously you can go and see my other video, but basically it had water inside the charging port which had corroded the port essentially. So what Eufy did was I reached out to them, and without too much hassle at all, literally it was just it was through this app. So what I actually did was I came into this section here for help, and then I literally went to the feedback tab and I actually used this section, which isn't actually the right method of contacting them, but they still reached out to me, and basically within 2 emails issued me a replacement. So this porch camera, as you can see, this is one that I wouldn't have had previously, and that is basically my replacement. Right, and the reason I have the driveway camera as well as the porch is basically I did eventually get the driveway camera to actually charge up. It did involve quite a lot of cleaning of the port, because obviously it was corroded, but eventually it did actually charge up. So what we'll do is we'll come into this one. So this was obviously the original camera, so this is coming into it and just going to detection settings. For some reason the things have changed slightly on this particular camera, since basically when I removed it, it completely disappeared, so I had to repair it, and it wasn't simple, put it that way. So repairing it and everything wasn't straightforward, which I'll get to the doorbell with regards to that as well. So as you can see, I've had this installed for 12 days. Settings wise, this is exactly the same as it was, so 104 detections, 12 days, and it's down to 92%. When I actually plugged it in to actually test that solar charger, the battery percentage on this was, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was below 20, so it would have been around 18, possibly 17%. So it still had probably at least a couple of weeks, if not a month, left in it. As soon as I plugged in that solar charger, it pretty much reset all of the statistics. So at that point it was kind of pointless reconnecting it and waiting for it to die, so I figured I may as well just try and charge it up. Obviously with it being corroded within the charging port, I wasn't sure, and initially when I did plug it in, the first charging cable that I used, I left it on for hours and it literally only went up by 2 or 3%, and then it wouldn't go any further. So then I removed it from that, took it to another charger that I had, cleaned it further, and then eventually got it to actually charge back up. Now the one thing that I will say is, even though the light and everything was saying that it was fully charged, as soon as I connected it, the first day, the battery charge level on this screen here actually dropped down to 90%. So basically I think it was overnight that I left it. I checked in the morning, it looked like it was charged, took it off, connected it all back up again, checked it that night, and it basically dropped down 10%. So I thought, okay, so maybe it is broken. Checked it the following morning and it actually gone back up to 98%. So there's something not quite right with this particular camera. So if you remember from my original videos, I did state that one of these cameras took a lot longer to actually charge, and I'm guessing that there was just something wrong with this particular camera all along. It's still working, so as you can see, if I go into it, it does load up. And you have to remember, these are battery cameras, so it will take a little longer. It doesn't normally take that long either, to be fair, but as I've said in the past, HomeKit has always worked faster for me than the actual native app. Now coming on to the back garden camera, as you'll see from this. So this one is from the original day, so when everything was installed. So if we come into detection, so as you can see, 50% exactly, and it's 110 days. Now what I've also done with this is I actually disabled motion detection on the back garden, because during summertime and when we were having the late sunsets, I didn't really need motion recording during the day because everybody was out in the garden, and basically there was a lot of foot traffic, so there was never a risk of anything, basically anybody coming into the garden. Whereas now, because it goes dark at like 4:30 now, we don't tend to use the back garden much at all, and basically just for a little bit of extra security, I figured I'll put the motion detection on. In theory, it shouldn't actually get that many detections anyway, so this shouldn't actually affect the battery life too much. But as you can see, 110 days, it still wouldn't get a full year. So even if I was to leave this fully disabled, I don't think these cameras can do a full year. And this one was the one that actually charged for a lot longer, that initial time, basically the first setup. So before I put all of these in position, I gave everything 100% charge overnight, and basically this one did take a lot longer to actually charge up. So even with its full potential, I don't think these Eufy Cam 2s are 1 year batteries. And what you have to remember is this is the 1080p version. The 2K version, or the Pro version, it can only be worse than this because it's recording at a higher bit rate. The resolution difference isn't that great, but I believe the bit rate is slightly higher. So take it with a pinch of salt in terms of the 1 year battery kind of claim that Eufy make. But on the flip side, even if you have to charge something twice a year, say basically once summer's just about to start, you're not really going to mind going outside and just taking the camera off for a couple of minutes, and then once just before winter's kicking in again, just give it another top up. And as long as it gets you through winter, I think that's the main thing. Nobody really minds that much. And obviously there are other options where, like I said, if your camera is mounted in a position where the charging port isn't exposed to the elements, then you may as well just put a solar charger on it. What I may still do is test the solar charger with the camera that was faulty. So what I might do is swap that with the back garden one, because that one's slightly less exposed and it's at a different angle. So I think one of the issues with this one was because it's angled down so much, I think the charging port is exposed a lot more, whereas if it was almost straighter as the back garden one is, then I don't think it would be exposed as much. And what you could also quite easily do is just with some hot glue, literally just connect it once you're happy everything is set up right, and then just put some hot glue on it, seal it up, and then obviously the hot glue, if you need to, you can peel that off and it shouldn't do any damage to either the cable or the surrounding sort of plastic of the actual camera itself. So the back garden camera going okay, no real issues with that. They have had some firmware updates, and for some strange reason some of the devices run on different firmwares. If we come into events and we go to alerts, no, sorry, it's not that one. You have to come to this one, system. And if you see from here, so it says device cameras home base updated successfully, and that was on the 29th. And now bearing in mind, yeah, so this the update for the doorbell home base was on the 27th, and then the one for the cameras didn't come through until the 29th, and that's even after I actually went in manually to try and actually trigger it and get it to update. So that's one thing that doesn't work very well with Eufy's sort of update system, where when the device gets a firmware upgrade automatically, it will come through and it will work fine. But if you know that a particular device, so I have two home bases, I know that both of these in theory should have the same firmware because both of them have cameras connected to them. But it doesn't always work that way. Now coming up a little, so both of these are just basically plugged in essentially. These are the indoor cameras, so no real issues with these. They work perfectly well. The one annoying thing is where I've got these obviously in both rooms with TVs, whenever you're watching a movie or watching TV at night, whenever you get a dark scene, it keeps triggering the actual night vision essentially. So that is slightly annoying. So what I do have to do is just turn night vision off every single time. So I might just set up a Siri shortcut or something that'll actually automatically do that whenever I sit down to watch a movie, but it's not the end of the world. So this is the new camera, and let's just go into the specs of this one. So power manager, so this one's on 96%. Same thing with this. After the initial unboxing, I did give it a full charge, so this one's been in place for 13 days. So as you can see, this one and the front driveway camera pretty much charged up. Well, this one's actually been used for longer, because yeah, so the driveway one, if we just come back to that and we go to power manager, yeah, that's 12 days with 92%. And the porch, where's it gone? So the porch is actually 13 days and it's 96% and 142 detections. And with this one we have power manager 164, so slightly more, not massively different, but I think what could also be benefiting the front porch one is it's not got quite as much. So where this is located, obviously you've not got quite as much in the image that isn't stationary. So you basically, this whole left hand section, the wall, and then same thing on the right hand side, and then the fencing, all these kind of things are static. So in essentially when it's actually updating, if it worked cleverly and it used proper encoding, then what it would probably do is obviously cheat and just freeze those areas of the image, allowing it to compress the files and obviously save a bit of battery life by doing so. But yeah, that one all fine. Now coming on to the doorbell, so what actually happens in the Eufy security app, and one thing that I don't like is there's no way of actually rearranging your devices. So basically what happens is, as you add devices, they appear at the top of your list. And I've, to be honest, I don't use the Eufy security app a lot. I literally only use it to check events, so for example checking doorbells, things like that. But as you'll see, so the porch is second and the doorbell's right at the top. So the reason the doorbell's right at the top is the doorbell was close to dying. I believe it was on around 14%, and that was after 100 days exactly. Now that for me, for the doorbell, is really good. I'm really pleased with how the doorbell actually manages the battery, because as I said, my previous doorbell was with motion detection disabled. It used to last less than 3 months. So with this lasting upwards of 3 months quite easily, with quite a lot of the detections with the motion and everything enabled, like I say, I'm really happy with the battery life of this. So it got to around 100 days, and it was basically the same time as I was charging up the cameras. So I figured it was overnight, I was off work anyway, so I figured I may as well just charge it up. So I took it off charge, took it off the mount, charged it up overnight, went to check it in the morning, and it was just completely dead. So it wasn't responsive at all. You press the middle button for the doorbell, it did nothing. You press the reset button, wouldn't do anything. Eventually, like maybe after trying that for about a good 20 minutes, and basically in the app, obviously it wasn't refreshing because it wasn't showing up. So I deleted it from the app and went to re-add the doorbell. It re-added perfectly fine, but it was a bit annoying, the fact that this device that's been working perfectly, and even whilst it was charging up until say about 80%, I kept checking it and it was fine. But what I did do whilst I was charging, obviously I didn't want it constantly detecting people moving around the doorbell, so I turned it off. So where it says camera on, I just disabled it, because that way firstly it'll charge quicker, and secondly I won't have a load of unnecessary motion detections. So I turned the camera off. When I went to turn it back on, it was not responsive. Basically, I can't remember exactly what it did, but it just wouldn't, I think it would just hang and then eventually give you an error. So I deleted it, thinking that it doesn't take long to add these devices. It's literally like just a couple of clicks and it's done. But obviously it had that slight issue where when I went to re-add it, it was non-responsive. Eventually it did come on, and it basically once the doorbell did turn back on, then obviously because I deleted it, I had to re-add it. But like I said, it wasn't a big issue repairing it. But obviously what that does do, it messes up my order, where I prefer to have the doorbell right at the bottom, or well, I prefer to have the driveway one right at the top, because that's the one that I tend to use the most. Doorbell has actually just rang, but I think that's just somebody coming in that wasn't actually the doorbell. That's just a separate sensor that I've got set up. Right, so Eufy, and with regards to the events and everything, obviously, yeah, son's just come home. So with that, everything's fine. So what we'll do is we'll pop over to the HomeKit app. Now I am updated to iOS 14.2, and I've also updated the TVs to iOS 14.2 as well. So I might do a separate video on that. But essentially what it comes down to is everything is really reliable now. With the battery ones, obviously it still takes a couple of seconds to actually boot up initially. So you'll see from this, all of these are battery powered, so it takes about 2 seconds to actually boot up initially. But basically your internal ones, anything that's battery powered, should actually be completely instant. So that's my son sneaking out. Yep. Yeah, so the internal cameras, they're perfectly fine. One thing I did notice was never got no response since that firmware update. So if we come down to the camera home base and we just go about device, I think it was the iOS, sorry, it was the 2.1.3 no, it was 2.1.2.8. From that system version upwards, I've not had any issues with HomeKit. So HomeKit has literally been perfect for me. So literally anytime home or when I'm out, my watch does work. When I'm on a Wi-Fi connection, for some reason it just doesn't seem to connect over 4G. I don't know whether that's a restriction, the app itself, but basically the watch will work over any Wi-Fi connection, be that at home or when I'm out at somebody else's, on somebody else's Wi-Fi connection. But the phone, literally all the time, it will just work, connects really fast. On the TV, the TVs are still a little bit janky in the sense that the battery powered ones always work. The indoor cameras, for some reason, what tends to happen is, like I've got this set up and I've got front room, living room. Say for example, if I'm in the front room and I click on the front room one, it won't instantly load up. But if I click on the living room one, that one will, and vice versa. When I'm in the other room, the opposite room one will load up straight away, but the room that you're in will only load up after you've loaded the other one up. But obviously I suppose it's not really a big issue because you don't need to monitor the room that you're in. But yeah, everything is working perfectly well. Obviously with the slight issue that I had with the driveway camera, it did at least give me a chance to see what Eufy's customer service is like. And I have to say, I did mention it in that video and I'll reiterate it here. It feels almost Amazon or Apple-esque in terms of how they actually dealt with it. There's very few companies that I've had to actually reach out to with regards to products that I've bought like this. The only other one that I can really think of where it's a premium item is LifeX, the LifeX bulbs, and that was very similar in the sense that there wasn't no hassle. I didn't need to go through loads of calls and emails. I didn't even need to ring in. I literally just sent them proof of purchase, gave them details of the problem, and basically they just replaced the item. Now one thing Eufy have also done is reached out to me, just checking to see how the new cameras going basically. And one thing I did do was I actually sent him a copy, I sent him a link to my previous video and just highlighting the issue. And one thing that I did notice when I actually took the doorbell camera off, the doorbell itself, by the way, hasn't actually got HomeKit support yet. I am still told that it is meant to be coming somewhere down the line, but obviously it's not quite here yet. The doorbell, basically the rubber seal for the doorbell's micro USB connection is a completely different rubber to that used on the cameras. So it's very stiff. You literally have to fight with it to get it out. The pin that you actually use to remove the camera, I had to actually use that and almost pierce it into the side of it in order to get enough of the rubber to actually latch onto to pull that port out. Now if they changed the rubber on the main cameras to that same rubber or something very similar, I think they'd perform a lot better over the long term. I know they went for that shape, so what they've tried to do was cut out a shape of the micro USB. So basically when you close the rubber seal, effectively what it's doing is it's it's going around the micro USB connection, so that way if any water even gets in, that then creates a secondary barrier, if you like. But by doing so, what it's actually doing is it doesn't sit in perfectly, and it means that firstly it flicks out very easily, and secondly it means that obviously if it's not 100% in, or possibly even with minor changes in the temperature, the rubber is either expanding or shrinking, and that's causing water to be able to get in, because that's how it's happened. Now, I've not checked the back garden camera yet. Obviously we're still on 50% battery life, so I have actually said to them that obviously what I will do is when this one gets close, then I will actually check it again, which most likely will be after winter now, because obviously with 50% battery left now, we're in November already, so it'll be probably early next year, at the very earliest I'll be looking at this particular camera, checking it. But functionality wise, how they operate, everything like that, yeah, it's been great. And basically HomeKit, for me, in a way, it's actually been better than the actual normal indoor cameras. Obviously there is a massive price difference as well, so these ones I got both of these on sale, so I think originally they retailed for like about £40 for the inside ones, and I think I only paid about 30 or something like that for each one, which, considering these are 2K cameras, I believe. Yeah, 2K cameras, so considering they're 2K cameras, that's not a bad price to pay, because most other HomeKit cameras for that, even 1080p cameras, they're selling upwards of £80 that have very similar, if not less, features. So very, very happy with all the cameras. Basically that's one area of my HomeKit home, if you like, where I don't need to worry about. Most of these items, to be fair, just work. Obviously these ones at the bottom, no response. Most of these things aren't even plugged in, and the lights are switched off. They're my LifeX bulbs, so obviously because they're not getting power, they're not going to show a response. But yeah, happy with everything as it is right now. What I will do is I'll keep doing these updates. I'll probably try and do it periodically now. Next one's probably going to be whenever this particular camera is actually starting to die out. And yeah, for anybody who hasn't seen any of my previous videos, you can just, in HomeKit, you can see the battery charge level as well. You don't need to actually ever open the Eufy app. I don't have HomeKit Secure Video or anything like that set up at the moment. I don't really need it because everything's getting recorded anyway. But what I might do is I might trial it for a month just to see how it is, and then I'll give my feedback on it after that. If you have enjoyed this video, then I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and also hit the like button. Share it with all your friends and colleagues on social media, and until the next one, thank you very much for watching.